Commander Jennifer Hayes stood at perfect attention on the United Earth delegation platform, her dress uniform pristine under the harsh alien spotlights. Above her, the massive form of the Concordat diplomatic vessel hung in the evening sky like a twisted crystal cathedral, its hull gleaming with an iridescence that still managed to take her breath away despite her years of preparation for this moment. "Fascinating," drawled High Inspector Ixel, his translucent appendages waving dismissively at Earth's ceremonial fleet arranged in orbit. "Your species has managed to achieve basic gravitic propulsion without destroying yourselves. How quaint." The translator rendered his chittering tone with perfect clarity, including every nuance of condescension. Hayes maintained her diplomatic smile, even as her jaw clenched tight enough to crack a diamond. In her earpiece, Lieutenant Rodriguez was providing a running commentary of the real show happening just a few thousand kilometers away. "Ma'am, Concordat Battle Group Sierra just passed through the Ghost Fleet's formation. 30 of our ships within spitting distance of their flagships. They don't have a clue we're here." "Acknowledged," Hayes vocalized, the quantum communicator embedded in her dress uniform's collar picking up the vibrations of her throat. She returned her focus to Ixel, who was now pontificating about the charming simplicity of Earth's shipbuilding techniques. "Your hull designs are quite efficient for such basic materials," the High Inspector continued, gesturing at the ceremonial vessels with one of his upper limbs. "Though I note you've made no attempt to incorporate crystalline matrices or neural organic interfaces. Perhaps in another century or two, you'll be ready for such advancements." Hayes felt a bead of sweat roll down her back despite the evening chill. The real fleet, her fleet, was the product of centuries of human innovation forced in an entirely different direction. While the Concordat races had focused on flashier technologies, humanity had perfected the art of invisibility. Quantum stealth fields, gravity wake eliminators, thermal masks, layer upon layer of overlapping technologies that made their true warships virtually undetectable. "High Inspector," she said carefully, "we look forward to learning from the Concordat's example." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Ixel's translator crackled as he gave the alien equivalent of a laugh. "Yes, yes. We'll assign you a proper technological development advisor. Category 3 civilization protocols should suffice. We wouldn't want you struggling with anything too advanced." Hayes's earpiece crackled again. "Ma'am, Ghost Fleet reports successful penetration of Concordat security screens. We're downloading their complete tactical database. They might as well have left the keys in the ignition." She allowed herself a small smile. "We are honored by your generosity, High Inspector." The ceremony dragged on, a carefully choreographed dance of subtle insults and patronizing gestures. The Concordat delegation had already classified Earth as a negligible military power, suitable only for resource extraction and perhaps some light manufacturing work under proper alien supervision. They never thought to question why humans had been so eager to display their primitive ships. Never wondered why Earth had accepted such a low classification without protest. Never considered that an entire species might be capable of maintaining a secret of this magnitude. As the sun set over the Pacific, Hayes watched the Concordat ships depart, their crystalline forms catching the last rays of daylight like drifting jewels. In her mind's eye, she could see the Ghost Fleet moving with them, invisible shadows recording their every move, learning their every weakness. "Command confirms mission success," Rodriguez reported in her ear. "Operation Oversight is officially underway." "Very good, Lieutenant," Hayes replied softly. "Let them think we're harmless. Let them think we're simple. The galaxy's about to learn why you should never judge a species by its ceremonial fleet." Above her, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, humanity's invisible armada was watching, waiting, and learning. The Concordat would never see them coming. They wouldn't see anything at all, until it was far too late. Commander Hayes stood in the shadows of Fortress Alpha's Central Command spire, technically being there and not being there at the same time. The U.S. Phantom lived up to its name, its quantum stealth field rendering the ship as invisible as a ghost at midnight. Through the massive observation windows, she could see Concordat officers going about their daily routines, completely unaware of the human vessel hovering near meters from their sanctuary. Environmental analysis complete. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. They're processing enough enriched crystalline matrix material to build 1,000 planet-killer weapons. So much for their peaceful development protocols. Hayes moved closer to the window, knowing she could have reached out and touched it if not for the stealth field's buffer zone. Below them, a young Concordat officer, barely out of their equivalent of academy training, worked at a security terminal. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession as they monitored sensor readings. "Ma'am," Rodriguez's voice carried an edge of concern. "Power fluctuation in the port quantum matrix. Nothing critical, but..." The young alien officer's head snapped up, all 4 eyes focusing directly on where the Phantom hung in space. Hayes felt her heart skip a beat as the alien reached for their communication panel. "Hold position," she ordered, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Let's see how this plays out." The alien officer's report was met with exactly what Hayes had expected. Dismissive laughter from their superiors. She could see the young officer's shoulders slump as they were berated for imagining sensor ghosts and wasting command's time with fantasies. "Their arrogance is our greatest ally," Hayes murmured, even as she felt a twinge of sympathy for the junior officer. "Rodriguez, make a note of that one. Anyone smart enough to spot us through a quantum field is someone we need to watch." "Noted, ma'am." "Data extraction is at 97%. We're confirming what Intel suspected. The Concordat is systematically disarming every species they classify as developing. Meanwhile, their own military buildup has increased 400% in the last standard year." Hayes watched as more Concordat ships arrived at the fortress, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight in ways that still seemed beautiful despite everything she now knew about their creators. The Phantom sensors cataloged each vessel, adding to the massive database Earth had compiled about their supposed allies. "They're preparing for something," she said, more to herself than her crew. "All this military expansion, the forced disarmament of other species, the planet killers, they're getting ready for war. But with whom?" The answer came from an unexpected source. As they watched, a priority communication flashed across every screen in the command center. Hayes read the alien text through her neural translator and felt her blood run cold. "The Vorax," she whispered. "They're coming." Moving with practiced efficiency, Hayes's crew began compiling everything they'd learned. The Phantom had to get this intelligence back to Earth. The Concordat wasn't just preparing for war. They were preparing to sacrifice countless lesser species as buffer zones against the galaxy's most notorious predators. As they prepared to withdraw, the young alien officer looked up again, this time with all 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. Hayes knew they couldn't see the Phantom, but somehow they sensed its presence. For a moment, human and alien gazes met across the void of space and the barrier of the quantum field. One day, Hayes promised silently, "You'll know you weren't imagining things. I just hope by then we're on the same side." The Phantom disappeared into the depths of space, carrying its vital intelligence and leaving behind only questions in the mind of one junior officer. As they accelerated to FTL, Hayes reviewed the data they'd gathered. The Concordat was building an arsenal of planet killers. The Vorax were on the move, and Earth's invisible fleet might be the only force capable of stopping both threats. She had a feeling that maintaining their cover was about to become much more difficult. The Vorax emerged from hyperspace like a plague of locusts, their biological ships darkening the stars around New Eden Colony. Commander Hayes watched in horror from the Phantom's bridge as the living vessels swarmed the Concordat defense fleet. "By all that's holy," Rodriguez whispered, his hands tight on his console. "Those ships, they're asterisk-eating asterisk, the Concordat vessels." Hayes forced herself to keep watching. The Phantom's stealth systems were the only thing keeping them alive as the Vorax ships. Massive, Organ-like structures pulsing with bioluminescent light literally devoured their way through crystalline hulls and energy shields. "Record everything," she ordered, her voice steady despite the nightmare unfolding before them. "Every detail, every tactic. Earth needs to know what we're up against." The Concordat fleet's response was textbook perfect and completely useless. Their energy weapons struck the Vorax ships with enough power to shatter moons, only for the biological vessels to absorb the energy and grow stronger. Each blast meant to destroy them only made them larger, hungrier. Multiple contacts emerging from the colony, their sensor officer reported. Civilian evacuation ships. They're not going to make it. Hayes felt her nails dig into her palms. The Phantom's stealth field was their greatest asset, their only protection. Breaking cover would mean certain death. And yet, "Ma'am," Rodriguez's voice cracked with urgency. "One of the evacuation ships, it's a school transport. 300 children aboard." The universe, Hayes decided, had a sick sense of humor. Plot an intercept course. Prepare for emergency quantum field modulation. Her crew stared at her. They all knew what she was suggesting. The Phantom could extend its stealth field around the school ship, but only at point-blank range. It would mean threading the needle between Vorax vessels, any one of which could destroy them with a single touch. "Time to intercept," she demanded. 40 seconds. Rodriguez swallowed hard. "The Vorax will reach them in 30. Hayes allowed herself one deep breath. "All hands, battle stations. Divert all non-essential power to the quantum field. We're going to show these bacteria-riddled bastards why humanity learned to hunt before we learned to farm." The Phantom accelerated, invisible engines pushing it to speeds that would have torn a lesser ship apart. They dove between Vorax vessels, close enough to see the horrific details of their organic construction. Digestive acids dripped from massive maws, and what looked disturbingly like synapses pulsed along their flanks. 20 seconds to contact. A Vorax ship larger than the others turned toward them, its sensory organs questing. They couldn't see the Phantom, but like that young Concordat officer, they could sense something was wrong. 10 seconds. The school ship's engines were failing, its hull breached in multiple places. Through the viewport, Hayes could see terrified faces pressed against windows. "Field extension ready," Rodriguez reported. "But ma'am, we'll be visible for at least 2 seconds during the transition." Hayes bared her teeth in what couldn't really be called a smile. "Then we better make those 2 seconds count. All weapons, prepare to fire. Let's show them what primitive technology can do." The Phantom dropped its stealth field at precisely the same moment it unleashed every weapon in its arsenal. Specially designed projectiles, developed in secret over centuries, tore through the nearest Vorax ship's biological hull. The creature's death scream echoed through space as the Phantom's extended quantum field enveloped the school ship. Both vessels vanished from sensors just as the Vorax swarm turned to attack. Hayes felt sweat running down her face as they maneuvered through the chaos, now protecting not just their own ship, but hundreds of terrified children. "Get us out of here," she ordered. "And someone tell those kids they're going to live to see tomorrow." As they limped away from New Eden, Hayes watched the colony fall to the Vorax. Her hands shook with fury and determination. Humanity had hidden long enough. These monsters wanted to eat the galaxy. It was time to show them that humans could be predators too. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood before the holographic display in Earth's hidden strategic command center, watching red markers spread across the galaxy map like a bloodstain. Each one represented another world fallen to the Vorax. The latest projection showed their trajectory, straight toward Earth's sector. "We can't wait any longer," he growled, turning to face Fleet Marshal Jessica Thompson. "Every hour we spend debating is another colony lost." Thompson's weathered face showed the strain of sleepless nights. "The moment we reveal our fleet, there's no going back. 300 years of secrecy, gone in an instant. Are you absolutely certain we're ready?" The command center's doors hissed open. Commander Hayes strode in, still wearing the singed dress uniform from her rescue operation. "Show them," she ordered, and her neural link projected the Phantom's sensor data into the holographic display. The room fell silent as they watched the Vorax ships devour the Concordat fleet. Rodriguez felt his stomach turn as the biological vessels grew larger with each energy weapon that struck them. "That's not the worst part," Hayes continued, her voice tight. "Show them the analysis." The display shifted, revealing microscopic views of Vorax ship flesh. Their biological matrix adapts to any energy weapon it encounters. The more they're hit, the stronger they become. The Concordat's entire defense doctrine is worse than useless. It's actually making the Vorax more powerful. Rodriguez slammed his fist on the table. "And those smug bastards are planning to use our sector as a buffer zone while they figure out a solution. We're all just cannon fodder to them." "Not necessarily." Hayes's voice had taken on a strange tone. "The Phantom's labs made a discovery during our escape. The Vorax ships may be incredibly adaptive, but they're still biological. And humanity has centuries of experience fighting biological threats." The display changed again, showing the results of weapons tests against samples collected during the rescue. Rodriguez leaned forward, his eyes widening as he understood the implications. "These engineered phages, they're like viruses designed specifically to attack Vorax bioships." Hayes nodded. "Their adaptive abilities work against energy weapons, but they have no defense against this. We've spent centuries perfecting stealth technology, while the Concordat focused on bigger guns. But we also never stopped advancing in other areas. They just never bothered to check." Thompson studied the data, her expression shifting from concern to calculated interest. "How quickly can we weaponize this?" "We already have," Hayes replied. "The Phantom's labs began production the moment we confirmed it would work. We can arm the entire Ghost fleet within 48 hours. Rodriguez straightened, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Then we have a choice to make. Do we remain hidden, saving only ourselves? Or do we reveal everything and try to save the galaxy, including those who dismissed us?" The strategic display updated again, showing the latest Vorax positions. They were moving faster now, consuming entire systems in days. At their current pace, they would reach Earth in less than 2 weeks. Thompson closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there was steel in her gaze. "Commander Hayes, your assessment." Hayes gestured to the display, highlighting the projected casualties if they waited versus acted immediately. "The Concordat's arrogance doesn't justify the death of billions. We have a weapon that works, a fleet they never saw coming, and a duty to act. Humanity spent 3 centuries preparing for a moment like this. We just didn't know what that moment would be." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Then we're agreed. Operation Revelation begins in 48 hours. Sound the alert through the Ghost fleet. It's time to remind the galaxy why their ancestors told stories about humans being the most dangerous predators of all." As alerts began pulsing through quantum channels to Earth's hidden ships, Rodriguez looked at the galaxy map one final time. Soon, those red markers would stop spreading. The Vorax thought they were invincible. The Concordat thought humanity was primitive. They were both about to learn how wrong they were. The Vorax swarm emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, their biological ships pulsing with stolen energy from 100 consumed fleets. Long-range sensors detected only a handful of primitive human vessels fleeing in disarray, exactly what they expected from such an underdeveloped species. Then Admiral Rodriguez gave the order that changed galactic history forever. "Ghost Fleet, disengage quantum fields. Weapons free. Show them what humanity can do." 5,000 ships materialized simultaneously, surrounding the Vorax fleet in a perfect sphere of previously invisible death. The Phantom led the vanguard, its stealth field dissolving to reveal gleaming hull plates covered in weapon ports that no alien had ever seen before. On the Concordat observation post at the system's edge, the young officer who had once detected a ghost near Fortress Alpha watched in stunned disbelief. Their superior officers, for once, had nothing condescending to say. "This is Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. His transmission broadcast on all frequencies. You were warned that this sector was protected. Now you'll learn why." The Vorax responded predictably, by launching all their energy-based weapons at once. Bioplasma, quantum lances, and stolen Concordat weaponry lashed out at the human fleet. But Earth's ships didn't dodge. They didn't have to. Every energy blast passed straight through them, hitting nothing but carefully crafted sensor ghosts. The real ships were meters away from where they appeared to be, their quantum displacement fields making a mockery of the Vorax's targeting systems. "Second phase," Rodriguez commanded. "Commander Hayes, you have the honor." The Phantom's labs had worked overtime, producing enough engineered phages to infect 1,000 Vorax ships. As the biological vessels reoriented to fire again, Hayes gave the order that would become legendary in future history books. Release the cure. Specially designed missiles streaked across space, their payloads engineered for one purpose: to remind the Vorax that even apex predators can become prey. The biological ship's adaptive defenses, so effective against energy weapons, meant nothing against this new threat. The first Vorax vessel to be hit began dissolving almost immediately. The phages attacked its cellular structure, breaking down the living ship into its component molecules. The virus spread from ship to ship through the biological connections that made the Vorax fleet so powerful, turning their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. "By all that's holy," the young Concordat officer whispered, watching the supposedly invincible Vorax fleet literally dissolve before their eyes. They had this capability all along. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. Where once hung a fearsome Vorax battle fleet, now drifted only molecular debris. Not a single human ship was lost. Signal from Concordat High Command. Rodriguez's communications officer reported, trying to hide a smile. "They're requesting an explanation." "Sir." Rodriguez shared a look with Hayes before responding. "Tell them that humanity apologizes for any misunderstanding about our technological capabilities. We look forward to discussing a more equitable relationship between our species." On screens across Concordat space, the footage began playing. Earth's invisible armada appearing from nowhere. The Vorax fleet's destruction. The revelation of technology that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. The mighty Concordat had just watched their classification of humanity as a negligible military power dissolve as thoroughly as the Vorax ships. "Orders, sir?" Hayes asked, watching the quantum communications channels explode with urgent diplomatic traffic. Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. "Plot a course for the next Vorax fleet. The galaxy just learned we exist. Now let's show them why that's a good thing." As the Ghost Fleet prepared to jump to its next target, the young Concordat officer sent a personal message to the Phantom. "I knew I wasn't imagining things that day." Hayes read the message and smiled. Perhaps there was hope for interspecies understanding after all, once the Concordat learned to look past their own assumptions. The invisible Armada was invisible no longer, and the galaxy would never be the same. Multiple Vorax signatures detected in the Orion sector. Lieutenant Rodriguez announced from his station aboard the Phantom. "They're adapting their movement patterns after what happened at Earth." Commander Hayes studied the tactical display, watching the biological ships scatter into smaller, harder-to-target groups. The Vorax were learning, evolving their tactics just as their ships evolved their defenses. But they weren't the only ones who could adapt. "Launch Operation Shadow Strike," she ordered. "All ships, execute quantum displacement pattern Delta." Earth's fleet split into hunter-killer groups, each targeting a separate Vorax cluster. The Phantom led its squadron through the debris field of a destroyed Concordat outpost, their enhanced stealth fields making them invisible even to the Vorax's improved detection systems. Then everything went wrong. "Energy spike," Rodriguez shouted. "There." The space around them lit up with a web of quantum detection fields. Hayes recognized the technology instantly. It was an exact replica of the sensor anomaly that young Concordat officer had used to almost detect them months ago. They're using Concordat tech against us, Hayes realized, watching as 3 ships in her squadron suddenly became visible. Break formation. Emergency protocols. The Vorax struck with terrible speed, their biological weapons tearing through the exposed human vessels. Hayes felt each loss like a physical blow, knowing that centuries of secrecy had just been compromised by their own arrogance. "Ma'am," Rodriguez's voice was tight with tension. "Concordat battle group approaching at FTL. They're demanding we stand down and submit to their tactical authority." Hayes almost laughed at the absurdity. Even now, after everything they'd shown, the Concordat still thought they could control humanity. She opened a channel to Admiral Rodriguez's flagship. "Sir, we need to adapt our strategy. The Vorax are combining their biological advantages with stolen Concordat technology. Our stealth systems are compromised," the Admiral finished. "I know. We're detecting similar attacks across 3 sectors. The Concordat's arrogance is going to get us all killed unless we do something dramatic." Hayes watched as more Vorax ships emerged from FTL, their biological hulls now incorporating crystalline structures that looked disturbingly like Concordat technology. They were evolving faster than anyone had predicted, turning their enemies' strengths into their own. "Sir," she said carefully, "I have an idea. But you're not going to like it." The plan was insane. It required perfect timing, absolute trust, and the kind of creativity that had kept humanity hidden for centuries. Most importantly, it required doing something no one in the Ghost Fleet had ever considered, working openly with the Concordat. "Begin transmission," Hayes ordered, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Commander Hayes to all Concordat vessels. We are initiating Protocol Omega, transmitting tactical data now." The young Concordat officer who had once almost exposed them was now a senior tactical advisor. Their voice came over the comm, thick with emotion. "Protocol Omega confirmed, Commander. Though I must admit, I never thought I'd see humans and Concordat fighting side by side." "The enemy of my enemy," Hayes replied, allowing herself a grim smile. "All ships, execute quantum fold maneuver on my mark." What followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. Human stealth technology combined with Concordat crystal matrices created a cascading quantum effect that turned the entire battlefield into a trap. The Vorax found themselves caught in a web of their own making, their stolen technology turning against them. As the last Vorax ship dissolved under their combined assault, Hayes looked at her tactical display. The cost had been high, too high. But they had proven something important. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their stealth technology or their biological weapons. It was their ability to adapt, to overcome pride and prejudice when survival demanded it. "New orders from command," Rodriguez reported. "We're to begin sharing limited stealth protocols with Concordat forces." Hayes nodded, watching as human and alien ships began coordinating their movements. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was changing with it. The question was, were they changing fast enough? The Concordat High Council chamber hummed with tension as Commander Hayes took the witness stand. Crystalline walls amplified her every word as she testified about decades of systematic oppression she'd witnessed while operating in stealth. "The evidence is clear," she stated, her voice steady. While claiming to protect developing species, the Concordat High Command was deliberately suppressing their technological advancement while building weapons of mass destruction. The chamber erupted in shouts and accusations. High counselors from a dozen species argued among themselves, their translators creating a cacophony of outrage and denial. Hayes noticed her former shadow, the once junior Concordat officer, now Security Commander Vextil, watching the proceedings with grim satisfaction. Then every emergency beacon in the chamber activated simultaneously. Multiple Vorax signatures detected. The tactical officer's voice cut through the chaos. They're everywhere. This is a full-scale assault on the capital." Hayes locked eyes with Vextil across the chamber. Both of them recognized the terrible truth at the same time. The Voraks had been waiting for this moment, when the leadership of every major species would be gathered in one place. "Get these officials to safety," Hayes barked, automatically taking command. "Ghost Fleet units, decloak and establish a defensive perimeter." Authorization code: Hayes Alpha 7. The space around the Concordat capital lit up as dozens of hidden human vessels revealed themselves. They had been there all along, watching, protecting, even during the trial of their alleged enemies. "Commander," Vextil called out, rushing to her side. "The Voraks are using a new kind of bioship. They've adapted to our combined tactics." Through the chamber's massive viewport, Hayes watched as the new Voraks vessels emerged from hyperspace. They were monstrosities, combining the worst aspects of biological and crystalline technology. Their hulls pulsed with stolen energy, and their weapons were unlike anything she'd seen before. "Get me Admiral Rodriguez," she ordered, already formulating a plan. "And patch in all Concordat fleet commanders." The battle that followed would reshape galactic politics forever. Human stealth ships fought alongside Concordat cruisers, their combined strengths covering each other's weaknesses. Hayes coordinated the defense from the council chamber, working side by side with the very leaders who had been ready to condemn her moments before. "Their new ships are resistant to our phage weapons," Vextil reported, monitoring the tactical displays. "But they can't adapt to everything at once." Hayes nodded, understanding. "All ships, execute Protocol Unity. Show them what happens when humanity and the Concordat stop fighting each other and start fighting together." The Ghost Fleet's quantum fields synchronized with Concordat crystal matrices, creating interference patterns that disrupted the Voraks' hybrid technology. Where biological weapons failed, concentrated energy beams found their mark. Where energy weapons were absorbed, engineered viruses slipped through newly created gaps. But victory came at a terrible cost. The council chamber shook as nearby explosions claimed ships from both fleets. On the tactical display, human and Concordat vessels winked out one by one, each taking Vorak ships with them. "They need to see this," Hayes said suddenly, turning to the assembled council members who had huddled in the chamber's protective core. "All of you, watch what happens when we stop worrying about who's superior and start working together." The final push was devastating. Hayes and Vextil coordinated their forces in perfect sync, centuries of distrust forgotten in the heat of battle. The Voraks' attempt to decapitate galactic leadership had failed, but more importantly, it had forced former enemies to recognize each other as equals. As the last Vorak ship exploded, Hayes looked around the chamber. The council members were silent, watching human and Concordat ships move in formation through the debris field. "Perhaps," the High Council leader said slowly, "it is time for the Concordat to evolve as well." Hayes caught Vextil's four-eyed gaze and nodded slightly. The galaxy was changing, but for once, change might be for the better. The real test would be what they built from the ashes of their pride. The graduation ceremony aboard Earth's newest stealth carrier, the UES Unity, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Hayes stood at the podium, looking out over the assembled faces, human and alien alike, all wearing the same uniform of the newly formed Galactic Alliance Defense Force. 3 years ago, she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "We stood divided. The Concordat believed themselves superior. Humanity hid in the shadows, and the Voraks nearly destroyed us all. Today, we stand as one." Commander Vextil, now her co-commander, stepped forward. All four of his eyes gleamed with pride as he surveyed their first joint graduating class of stealth fleet officers. "The strength of unity," he continued, his translator perfectly synced with his movements, "lies not in erasing our differences, but in combining them. Humans taught us the power of humility and innovation. We taught them the benefits of crystal matrix technology. Together, we have created something unprecedented." The massive view screen behind them displayed real-time footage of the new hybrid ships in orbit. Sleek human stealth technology merged seamlessly with Concordat crystals, creating vessels that could adapt and hide in ways neither species could have achieved alone. To our graduates, Hayes addressed the crowd. You represent the future we fought for. Each of you has learned that true strength lies not in superiority, but in understanding. Not in power, but in wisdom. She paused, remembering the battles that had brought them here. The lives lost, the sacrifices made, the moment when former enemies had to trust each other or face extinction. Computer, she commanded, disengage quantum fields. The Unity's stealth systems deactivated, revealing the true scale of the ceremony. Thousands of ships, human, Concordat, and the new hybrid designs, appeared in perfect formation around them. Among them was the Phantom, now a living legend, its battle-scarred hull a testament to the cost of change. Admiral Rodriguez, recently appointed as Supreme Commander of the Alliance Fleet, stepped forward. Your first mission begins today. The galaxy is vast, and there are more species out there like we once were, hidden, afraid, or suppressed. Your task is to find them, to show them that the age of fear and hierarchy is over. Vextil activated a holographic display showing their first target, a distant sector where unusual energy readings suggested hidden civilizations. We believe at least 3 species in this region have developed stealth technology similar to humanity's old systems. They're hiding, just as Earth once did. But they don't have to hide anymore, Hayes continued. None of us do. The Vorax taught us that evolution isn't just about becoming stronger or more adaptable. It's about learning when to step out of the shadows and trust in something greater than ourselves. The graduation ceremony concluded with a demonstration that would have been impossible just years ago. A perfectly synchronized quantum jump of the entire fleet, human and alien technology working in harmony to fold space itself. As the graduates dispersed to their assignments, Hayes found herself on the Unity's observation deck with Vextil, watching the stars streak by. Did you ever imagine this? She asked her friend and co-commander. Back when you first detected that tensor ghost at Fortress Alpha. All 4 of his eyes crinkled in what she now recognized as a smile. I imagined many things, Jennifer Hayes, but never this. Never something so perfect in its imperfection. She nodded, understanding. The alliance wasn't perfect. There were still prejudices to overcome, trust to be built, wounds to be healed. But they were moving forward together, and that made all the difference. New contact detected. The ship's AI announced. Unknown configuration. They're hiding. Hayes and Vextil shared a knowing look. Somewhere out there, another species was about to learn what they had learned. That sometimes the greatest strength lies not in remaining hidden, but in knowing when to reveal yourself to those who might become your greatest allies. The invisible Armada wasn't invisible anymore, but its legacy lived on in something far greater. A galaxy where no species had to hide in fear ever again.